Hello and good evening. You're listening to K4CO Radio. We have a special guest in our studio today. We have Krisshetta, who is actually the state director and Denver chapter director of Safe Families for Children Denver Metro. How are you?
I'm great. How are you this evening?
Doing well. Yeah, thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Well, we are very happy for this opportunity, so thank you.
Yeah, of course, of course. I hear, you're doing some great work. I don't want to take anything from you, so let's just kind of get right into it.
Okay.
Why don't you get a little bit into what you do and how you help, what you're providing?
Okay. So our mission is to host children and support families who have nowhere to turn when facing unmanageable circumstances. And so what that can look like is a parent who goes to the hospital for medical treatment, and because they don't have anywhere for their child to go, they take them with them. But then the doctor kind of comes in and says, well, we need to admit you, your levels aren't right or whatever the case may be. So that's why we can help families. We assist a lot of expectant mothers who maybe, again, are socially isolated and don't have anywhere for their children to go, maybe while they're giving birth, or those who are seeking treatment services for substance abuse. Also mental health concerns, or those experiencing homelessness or domestic violence. And pretty much anything that kind of make family circumstances feel unmanageable for that person in that time, with a focus on those who really have nowhere to go because they don't have either any family or friend supports in the area, and they just feel like they don't have anywhere to turn.
Gotcha. So a real big point of it is really about taking care of the kids while their guardians or family is incapacitated and can't.
Right.
Gotcha. How long have you guys been around, especially in Denver?
Yeah, so the Colorado chapters, we have 3 of those were established in 2019 and 2020. The Northern Colorado chapter was established in 2020, and Colorado Springs and Denver was established in 2019, but we are part of a larger national organization that celebrates its 20-year history, or 20-year anniversary this year.
20 years this year.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
It is. It's pretty awesome to see how the movement has grown over 20 years.
Oh, I bet. And then you're still kind of new in Denver and Colorado. How has that been, kind of acclimating that here?
Yeah, I think we're still rebuilding and growing, and we welcome opportunities like this to tell Colorado that we're here. We're here to support families. Don't feel like you don't have anywhere to turn. We're here if you feel like you don't have any family support, you don't have any friend support. And so we look to the church. We look for volunteers through the church to kind of come back and take its position in the community to help people. And so a lot of our volunteers come through the church. And so we want to say we're driven by faith. We're a movement driven by faith and unimaginable kind of generosity and intentional compassion. And so we're just still growing and getting our name out there among other organizations. So the church is one, but among business sponsors and just the community, to say, even if you're another community organization, how can we link up and support families together?
Gotcha. And you've been here in Denver and Colorado since starting kind of 2019. How has even the pandemic, even since you were right before that occurred, so how has that been with building this? Has been a lot of struggles there?
Right. Well, I have to throw out, I started actually in March of 2022.
Okay.
So I wasn't around for a lot of that journey, but kind of like in some other states that have safe families for children, what happens is, somebody would love to start a chapter because they really believe in this work and this movement. And then sometimes we receive a letter from the Attorney General that says cease and desist. And so Colorado got one of those when it tried to start in 2017. And so the staff and the volunteers pretty much from 2017 to 2019 were about getting us the legislation passed in Colorado to be able to even operate as a Safe Families Safe Families chapters. And so we have our own, it's called like the Safe Families legislation that was passed in October of 2019 that gave us the ability, basically gave parents the ability to voluntarily, when they're experiencing a crisis, select a safe family for their child instead of needing to go with a different type of system.
That is very interesting. You actually needed legislation in order to do this.
Yes.
Wow. That is kind of crazy, but I understand it's the world apparently. But
well, in Colorado is one of the states that kind of has some of the highest level of oversight for a Safe Families chapter. So the state director has to meet a certain set of qualifications. The person that oversees volunteer management, that basically matches families and volunteer families and our partner families who come for help, has to have a certain level of qualifications that meets the state. So it also at times has been a little hard to find staff and pay them a wage in Colorado for all of those kind of things. So, we feel like also, while it does create some challenges, it also kind of speaks to the level of professionalism kind of within a volunteer movement that's happening in Colorado, because we do still have to follow these kind of guidelines or regulations within the state.
How old are most of the kids that you deal with?
Right. It really ranges, but it sometimes can tend to seem around birth to maybe around the age of 12 are those that are most needing support, with sometimes 0 to 5 kind of having higher times a year than others. And then at times there can still be calls for those that are kind of between 12 and 17 as well. So it really varies.
So you actually have volunteers that are watching over infants.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
When parents are, in a place where they really need help, it is one of their kind of greatest concerns, and they are very distraught to think about giving away, or not giving away, but allowing someone to take care of, one so little that they're still attaching to, a little one who's 2 weeks or 3 months. But they're doing it out of their own selfless compassion for their children, and wanting the desire to be able to connect with their child how they want to, and be able to stay that force in their child's life. Whereas if sometimes the state comes in and has to intervene, there's not that level of voluntariness of deciding when you can have your own visits and talking to your child and all of those kind of things, which Safe Families allows because it is a voluntary program. So we encourage parents to stay connected with their volunteers, to visit their children when they want, to have phone calls. Volunteers send text messages with pictures. And so parents are really well informed about how their children are doing while they're in our care.
That is amazing. That is great. So these children are living with a family, with a guardian, instead of thrown into organization, like just all of them in one place. They're actually cared for that way. Right.
And individual families with other children. And sometimes that's the great thing. Like on Friday, we had a 6-year-old come back into care because the parent has really had a hard time with their medical condition. And one of the children in the homes, she was a former Safe Families child. And so as soon as she sees the child, she's like, give me a hug. And so just that welcoming of that, this is really can be a ministry, a volunteer of the whole family. Like, your children are just as important to welcoming this child into your home as the 2 adults are that are there as well.
And does this include families that even have children of their own that bring in these children, or is it mainly volunteers that are, not with children that are bringing them in.
That's the wonderful thing about Safe Families. We say, you opening your home, you could be almost at any stage of life, right? As long as you are in the right place in that stage of life, right? And so, yes, it is families that are currently parenting children. It's empty nesters. It's young singles. I always like to tell our story of our young single who's a 26-year-old engineer who was giving up 3 days of his week because that parent needed dialysis treatment, and it was after childcare hours, to this little 3-year-old toddler.
Wow.
And so there were great times of just doing fun with spaghetti and watching movies and coloring. And so you can be really any age to offer some levels of support, right? Direct support is one way, but we also have indirect support we are a nonprofit organization, so we do need the help of the community to support this organization financially. So you can participate by giving if this is not a time in your life where you feel like you can be a direct service volunteer. But our direct service volunteers are what we call host families. And so those are our families that are opening their home to care for the children. And then we look to have a family coach that kind of supports the host family and what we call the partnering family as they're going through this time to try and help move them through to stability. So we look for that family coach to identify resources and make sure the relationship is going well between the host family and the partnering family. And then we have family friends that help both of those groups out. If just so, like you said, right, these are parenting families who are opening their homes, so they can kind of get time back with their children as well. So the family friend might come in during the day or on the weekend,
right,
to kind of spend some additional time with that child. And again, it's more people that is wrapping around that family and saying, hey, we're here to help support you and, be a friend for you.
That's awesome to have that support right there. We're talking with Krisshetta here on K4CO with Safe Families for Children. We will be right back. All right, we are back with Krisshetta, who is the State Director and Denver Chapter Director for Safe Families for Children. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. So one thing I did want to ask is, why did you decide to help with this organization?
Yeah, definitely. So I always say I kind of have my own Safe Family story before I knew about Safe Families. About 18 years ago, I just happened to meet a young lady at church who was a product of the Chicago foster care system and had been adopted, but just did not have a great experience. And so she came out here to live with a great aunt, and there were moments of highs and lows there. But as she kind of had this opportunity to experience life anew, she was greatly unprepared for it. What it was like to live in dorm room life, what it was like to make your own decisions, what it was like to just start, like the new term, right, adulting. And so she just greatly needed support. And so at the time, my mother and I, we just started kind of helping to just support her through meeting her at church and like going to the dorms and being like, no, this is maybe not the best way to conduct yourself right now, or have you created a homework schedule? And then a little later, she found herself expecting, and the family member that had been supporting her basically told her she could no longer stay there as being a young expectant mother. And so we allowed her to, well, at that time, I think I had my own place, so she moved in with me.
Wow.
And so then it was having the two of them. And so pretty much my own personal story is just kind of a long one of desiring to help families, of people feel connected, of feeling like they have someone. But that's just kind of my own direct story. And so 18 years later, I'm an auntie to an almost, I think she'll be 12 this summer. Like
the same girl.
Same girl. So the daughter who was born will be 12 this coming June. In 18 years, and we've had our highs and our lows, and There's been challenges and there's been therapy and there's been movement through things. But 18 years later, we are still connected, and I'm still considered her big sister, because it's important that people have family. And she does have some family connections, but they are not really here. They're afar, and sometimes they can be great, and sometimes they can be stressful. And so, even though my mom has also chose to leave Colorado, I think we are both still kind of her anchor a lot of times, as just like a sounding board for things. And so sometimes there's, a really high level of involvement, and sometimes it's just a lot of calls and a lot of text. But that is my story of that. I think I always say I was a latchkey kid, I think, who came from two divorced parents who still barely can talk to each other however many years later that is now. And so I think my love of family was born out of that. Also, my mom had many siblings, and I know her being a single mom without her sister, it was the two of them, and they supported each other. My aunt had 4 children, my mom had 2. And so my mom always says, like, well, I got the most of those for that one. But, they supported each other from when they both had to work, that we were over at somebody's house, or the older daughters did the younger's hair. I was part of the younger. So there were 3 of us that were still in our like single digit ages, versus everybody else were kind of in their upper preteens to teenage years. And so, I just watched my mom as a single mom. And so I know without that community of support of her having her own mom, and then or her own sister, and then as things even got challenging, and she was like, okay, because we were living in upstate New York, and there was not much there except for Kodiak at the time and the hospital system which she worked in. But her mom was living here in Denver, and she said, this is where you need to be. More of your sisters and uncles are here, and we can support you as a single mom. She waited for my sister to go off to college, because we're almost 10 years apart. And then she packed up a U-Haul as a single mom and drove it from upstate Rochester, New York, all the way to Denver, Colorado. That's
a little drive.
That was a little drive by herself. And so, I just witnessed the power of what community means, whether it's community within your own family, or I think community of the church also. Like, I had godparents in the church until we came out here, and that community and people are powerful forces in our lives, and we need healthy ones to be able to feel connected and do well. And so that's my own personal story. That story has driven me to come to Safe Families.
It is so important, the community, especially growing up, for kids. And you mentioned, people can donate. And where does this money, what do these donations go towards? What do they go towards, and what basically drives this with those funds?
Yeah, Safe Families is mostly a volunteer-driven organization. So volunteers do pay for a lot of things out of their own compassionate hearts. And so a lot of what the funding goes to is to support the professional staffing, to monitor volunteers, and what those staffing hours kind of look like. So around making sure that volunteers are properly trained, that families who are in need of support have somebody to talk to when they call. Like, it's a real live person that they're talking to. It's not a recording.
Not a robot machine that we're all so used to.
Yes. These are about real connections and real people's lives, and they should be talking to a real person to express their hurts and their concerns. And so it's to support basically the business operations of the chapter. And so a lot of it does go to support staff salaries, but within that is the staff management of the chapter to do those things. So to coordinate family coaches and meet with family coaches, to again do intakes that are maybe one-on-one or more personal with families, to talk in person, to make sure a child is hosted, like all the things that go into like having a child matched and hosted by a family, all of those things. And so that's where the funding goes to. And so kind of what we break down is we say, if you give $25, that's a monthly investment, which recruits and helps to vet and train our volunteers. So again, it's staff monitoring that to make sure that whole process is done, because all of our volunteers that are direct service have to be fully vetted, and so they have a full background check.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right, and so $50 a month is basically you kind of support a family through a crisis. Again, that kind of that family coach supervisor within our staff, meeting with the family coach and things like that, and making sure those things are working. And then kind of our most economical, as we say, $1,500 supports one child to be hosted for their time. Whereas when we always say kind of invest in a proven model, because when we look at the foster care system, the reunification rate is 42%, whereas Safe Families, our reunification rate is between 92 and 94%.
Oh, wow.
And the state on average pays over $30,000 per child in foster care, whereas we are $1,500 for the one-time hosting, however long that is, for that child. And so our system is proven, it is evidence-based, and it's a lot more economical.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. You know.
How can people contact you? Like, say our listeners are hearing this, whether it be now when we're live or later on when, they're looking at on the internet and listening to your interview, and they say, I want to help, or maybe they know somebody who could even benefit from the services. What are the different ways they can contact you? I know you have a website, and for everybody, it's denver.safe-families.org.
Right.
Correct.
Yes, it is. And then again, because we're part of a national organization, so you would just put in the chapter that you want to review their information on, and then that comes up. But we do have a direct kind of referral line, but we take all our calls through there. And so that number is 303-209-8475. And so if you want to reach out and talk directly to staff, you can also call that number and somebody will get back with you if we miss your call or if it's considered after business hours. And
is that number for people needing the services or people wanting to volunteer, or both?
It can be both.
Okay.
To be honest, yes. It definitely can be both. And that's one of the great things about our program as well. I'm glad you brought that up, is that families can self-refer to the program. So they don't necessarily need a professional level organization. It doesn't have to be a professional referrer, so it doesn't have to be somebody from maybe another, like a homeless, a transitional housing program, or directly from the hospital. They can just decide that they feel like they are experiencing a crisis and call that direct number, again, that 303-209-8475 number, and refer themselves. Or a professional can refer a family as well.
Either way, and they both call the same number.
Call the same number, yes.
Excellent. And can they also contact you through the website if not calling as well?
They can. Like there's a request for help. It'll say request for a host family or a family friend, and so if you fill out that information, you'll just indicate what chapter you're looking for help, because remember, we are in northern Colorado. We are serving Larimer County, and that branches a little bit, so you would have to call that office to find out how far it branches in northern Colorado.
Right. Gotcha.
But then we're also in the Colorado Springs area, where we serve El Paso and Teller counties, and then in the Denver metro, we're trying to encompass the 5 major counties, so Adams, Arapahoe, Denver, Douglas, and Jefferson.
Perfect. All right. We're speaking with Krisshetta with Safe Families for Children on K4CO. We will be right back. All right. We are back with Krisshetta, the state director and Denver chapter director of Safe Families for Children. Great nonprofit that takes care of children that are in need, especially when their guardians and families are not able to do so. Want to talk about some, especially with the year coming up, the end of the year, certain events or fundraisers or anything that is going on that our listeners would like to know about for the organization. So
I want to encourage people. It's not too late to give. The Northern Colorado chapter just had their gala this past Friday on November 17th up in Ludland, and that was a really beautiful event. So it would be great to they're still receiving donations for that, and you can go out to our, again, Safe Family site and click on the donate button and just make sure you click for Northern Colorado chapter and donate and give to that if you feel moved so to do. The Denver chapter will actually have its dinner fundraiser at Maggiano's in the Denver Tech Center coming up on Thursday, December 7th, and that does require an RSVP, so we have an appropriate count. So if you give that number a call again, that 303-209-8475, we can connect you with all the information you need to RSVP, or we can just take it over the phone as well. And then all of us are preparing for end of year giving, as you mentioned. So one way is, again, you can go directly to the Safe Family site and click on our donate button and make sure you choose the chapter that's in your heart to give to. But also you can go out to the Colorado Gives Day website site, and there'll be a big push for giving, I believe, on Tuesday, December 5th. It's usually the first Tuesday of the month, I think, if that's not incorrect. And so our information is out there, and you can donate through that website as well. And that will pretty much take us to the end of the year. And then as we rev up from spring into summer, we all do our own, two of us, the Northern Colorado chapter and the Denver chapter, do like a walkathon event. Ours for the Denver chapter will be on Saturday, June 1st. At the United Methodist Church out in Highlands Ranch. And we do just a 1/4 of a mile loop. So anyone, all abilities and ages. It was great last year. We had little ones on scooters and little ones actually running. One kiddo, his mom challenged him, I think, to how many laps he could do. And so I think he impressed her. He did 23 laps, I think at like 50 cents a lap or something like that. So it's nice. For all ages. And if all you feel like you can walk is the 1/4 of a mile loop, then you can come out and do that and talk and visit and just learn more about Safe Families and any other community agencies we have at that event at that time. And then like Colorado Springs, they'll do like a pickleball tournament. I know that's coming up again in the spring. And then we just do little small kind of minor, or they're not minor, all right, but we do small fundraisers throughout the spring and summer.
And where can people find these events? Is there social media out there that lists these events if they did want to partake in it?
Yeah, we're getting there. So hopefully by the time they come around this time, you will be able to find them on either the Facebook page or our Instagram. We're actually working on combining those. Currently, each chapter has their own, but we've kind of tried to... We're talking about streamlining a little bit, and so we should have a combined social media, Facebook, and probably Instagram coming up, and all those things would definitely be there.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So all of your chapters have separate kind of areas and pages and stuff like that to focus on, right?
Yes, currently.
And I find it great that you can donate, and it actually says, well, what area do you want to, so that you can give right here locally, and instead of out, elsewhere. So, and just make sure that it goes to use here. Yes,
we're definitely doing great work here in the in Colorado, right? Like for the Denver chapter, like Denver Health is one of our largest referrers. We get calls from the emergency room social work team. Often I wouldn't. Throughout the week,
when needed,
when needed, right?
When needed, exactly.
And so same with the Northern Colorado chapters. They actually have a very close relationship with the county, Larimer County Department of Human Services, to really try and identify when families don't meet the criterion for removal, to really look at what is needed to assist those families. And so they do a lot of work. And same in Colorado Springs. Like, we definitely all are trying to connect more with community agencies and refers. And so we have a wide swath from everyone from hospitals to school systems to the departments of human services. But we really want to help families that are socially isolated to get connected and know that people in their community care about them.
It is so important, especially at that age.
Definitely.
Once again, their website is denver.safe-families.org. And can you say that number one more time for our listeners that they can call if needed?
It's 303 209 8475.
8475. Well, we really thank you very much for being in the studio today and kind of telling us everything about Safe Families for Children. And please make sure that you follow up with us, keep us in the loop, so that we know all the great work that you guys are doing.
We definitely will. And we are, again, so grateful for this opportunity to come and speak to you about what's happening in the Colorado chapter.
Of course. We absolutely love it. I mean, we're really here for our community and everything, so we love the work.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was Krisshetta, State Director and Denver Chapter Director of Safe Families for Children in Denver Metro. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and rest of the year.
I wish the same for you as well. Thank you.
All right. You've been listening to K4CO Radio. Have a good one. Take care. We got some good music coming for you.